create less power draw and run cooler, but because of how they, like, they might be running cooler because they're like fall out on memory, but they're really in terms of how they run. And you could have a workload that
So Shotgun zufälligerweise.
high average frequency doesn't really pull that much power.
Mutig?
And
Hallo?
also causes just disgusting transient flow.
Hallo?
And so then you have something where it's like,
nee, hab ich nicht.
Was hab ich überhaupt? Ah ja, Shotgun. Ja, okay. Oh oh.
Which I think is just a side effect of the wanting to test stability. Where it's just like, yeah, you test the stability in one workload, that runs and then you run another workload, that runs at
Nein, oh mein Gott, ich hab so halb verkackt, Digga.
I'm not sure if I'm getting, like, because the thing is,
Thatcher hat jetzt... Und einer hängt da, ist am Seilen vor der Wand. Ich muss mich eigentlich muten, warte.
It's actually kind of running right around 2 gigabits, isn't it? So there's the trick. Also, okay, this one definitely...
Oh mein Gott. Ich bin so lost.
And we have this, also approaching 2 gigahertz. So, yeah, I guess board partners, like,
Maverick is
if
tot.
they're shipping the cards with overclocks,
You have entered an enemy-controlled area.
and it's a side effect of their crappy capacity.
Der ist draußen bei dem Fenster hinten bei der Bridge. Oh nein.
Nice. If you're not stress testing them properly. But at the same time, like, these are going to be super annoying to stress test, and also, you do have, like, chip variance in terms of, like, the behavior of the actual silicon. So, like, some cards will potentially produce worse transient loading just because the GPU core on them is leakier or something than other GPUs. And you will also get, like, some variance in terms of, well, like, some cards will boost to a higher clock speed than other cards just because, again, leakage is a thing. So, yeah, this palette card, which in my opinion has a very weak capacity configuration. At least it mostly runs at 800 MHz, so that shouldn't really have an issue. Then we have gigabytes, so
Nein.
470 microfarad
Ich weiß es nicht.
This runs where?
Ich bin das
runs
nicht.
around 1800, so I'd assume that shouldn't have too much of a problem. Yeah, so that's like.
Warte, ich höre dich noch nicht mal.
And the cards get unstable
Secure the area. Keep the bombs protected.
Configuration is just like, well, that's what you pay extra for with the cards because of their actual overclock. So I really didn't think this would be such a, like, the thing is, when I did my video of the 38 minute I didn't really pay that much attention to like light because I really didn't think it would have that much, like, it would be that important.
Was hast du gesagt?
Ich habe gesagt, du gehst mir fremd. Ich wusste es.
So.
10 seconds left.
So. Die hättest du nicht mal. Ich gehe schnell die Edges machen. Bitte lass eine Tür für mich offen.
Nvidia likes to splurge on their PCBs in like the weirdest places. Well, actually, no, to be fair, the capacitive configuration, I'm a big fan of this. Like, SMD, you know, capacitor is awesome. So yeah, I'm a big fan of what Nvidia's done with their hundreds of in terms of the capacitive configuration. I'm not a big fan of the fact that they shoved everything onto this small. So density is higher than just like, yeah, so we kind of suck at designing heat sinks. Let's make it even harder to cool our card. Anyway,
oh my god.
Like, you can get 10
oh my god.
Just like missing like completely missing capacitors in their default configuration. And pretty sure, yeah, this is one of those. So look at the back. Ta-da! Like, admittedly, they filled out a bunch of like small multi-layer ceramics in those places, but ta-da! So I guess with this card it was identified that, you know, the high frequency filtering was more important than having a bunch of capacitance, but what else do we have? See this. Oh, actually, let's go look at the Zotac cars. So this is the AMP, so I would hope that they didn't do anything too... Come on. Yeah, no, so let's see there. I can't even identify the branding on these, but yeah, but like the thing is, there's other... Like with the capacitor configurations, there's also the... Like one of the sort of
Der Diffuser liegt vor der Tür.
cost considerations is actually you spend less time on the pick and place machine if you use bigger capacitors instead of more smaller capacitors. That's another like, you know, and it might like the thing is like if you're replacing large capacitors with 10 smaller capacitors, that's basically 10 times more time on the pick and place machine than if you were using the bigger capacitors. So that's another consideration. Not only are the multi-layer ceramics more expensive per microfarad, so it feels like the design guideline is something like you have to have this much bypass capacity in the core. So that's a lot of the time what you see for like Intel has that kind of guidance for a lot of their like motherboard designs, where it's just like your CPU socket cavity should use this many capacitors.
Op 4 eliminated. Mission successful.
Well, actually, Intel straight up tells you to just use like a very specific value of multi-layer ceramics. Some of the boards are like use,
Ja, der war bei mir.
like, use 20
Aber ich konnte richtig jetzt stoppen.
In the CPU socket cavity.
Weil ich das an meiner Playstation machen muss. In der Party.
So,
und weil er direkt vor mir war.
It's just like, so like, right? Like that I would actually blame for the, like, I'd blame the actual board partners for that in that case. And if it's a case of like NVIDIA didn't give us clear enough design guidelines, then it's NVIDIA's fault. But yeah, like I'm surprised that this has actually become an issue, because historically, right, like a lot of the time, like there's a lot of GPUs where if you remove a bunch of the capacitors behind the core, they're still going to run stock fine. So yeah, I'm really surprised that
ich frage mich, warum Luca aus der Party ist.
It makes sense that this could be an issue, because again, like, multi-layer ceramics have far better impedance at high frequencies than the
Op 4 has located a bomb. Be ready for assault.
Like, I'm surprised that like this wasn't caught in some kind of.
Hast du irgendwas gehört, bevor er rausgegangen ist, zufälligerweise?
Like, because it should be trivial.
Okay, dann muss ich ihn nochmal einladen, weil
Igor has a bunch of cards. I'm pretty sure Igor has an
10 seconds remaining.
Please stab some of them.
5 seconds and counting.
Assuming that.
Op 4 has located a bomb. Get ready to engage.
Oh, no, there we go. So I'm assuming that these two pads right here are for V-core. Like one of them's ground and one is V-core. I would solder I would stab those two pads right there. Because the thing is, if you measure directly off of the capacitor, you don't like the fact that you're measuring across the capacitor, calculated, use a measurement. And so if you're like measuring across, like don't measure off of the capacitors that are getting impedance, is what I'm trying to get. Alright, like don't measure across the cap, but everything is like don't measure across the thing that is don't measure across the variable. That's kind of like that's probably going to be the argument. So yeah, I would just basically choose a random V4 capacitor, maybe around the center of the core, and measure off of that. Because those are some of the biggest pads there are. Maybe this pad over here, I'm not sure about it, maybe this one over here. Here's a bunch of options. Measure off of one of them. And measure all, like, the thing is it's unpopulated on like all of the cards, right? Like you can see it right here. So yeah, I'd measure. You know, like I'd love to see a soul switch box.
Op 4, last stop standing.
So I wonder if it might not be like a 10 millivolt difference. Like, even like if you're really right on the edge of the board, very small differences in voltage regulation can make pretty drastic differences in terms of artifacting and traction and that kind of thing. There's also temperature effects to consider, and the thing is also like your power supply going into the GPU can actually affect what comes out of the VRM. So So if your power supply is not capable
Ja,
of
da waren
keeping up
einfach voll
with the
viele.
demands of the 3080,
Und da
then that
sind
could also
irgendwie
translate into
2
some
gestorben, aber ich
instability
glaube, die
that
waren
then
noch nicht mal drin,
exaggerates
aber
why
irgendwo
a
oben. Und dann sind
weaker
einfach alle reingekommen, glaube
bypass
ich, weil die
defensive
dachten, dass
configuration
Menschen
defense
sind.
core, right? Because like that's kind of the thing is like if you start with noisy
Ich
power
weiß
at
nicht, wie
the
ich
start,
soll.
and then you don't really do a great job. Like, so you have a
Fetcher.
relatively noisy power supply. Then you
Yeah.
don't really do a great job of cleaning that up when you get to the GPU PCB. So some of that's going to pass through the VRM. On the output of the VRM, you now have
Da waren einfach
not
2 nebeneinander.
but
Direkt nebeneinander.
like I don't have enough information. And apparently Zotac has tried to test this out. Also Asus, like I've heard apparently there's an Asus 3096 or 3086 with and I can't find a picture of it. Oh, wait, what's that?
10 seconds to insertion. Advise your drone has located a bomb. Insertion in 5 seconds.
So, yeah, anyway.
Drone has found a bomb.
I guess that's it for the video.
Found a bomb.
I'm kind of
Your
annoyed.
way to its location and defuse it.
I feel like this is kind of a long video because there's so much information here.
Hey everyone, we're at the world's largest electronics market. We're at SEG E-Market in Huaqian Bay in China, which is within Shenzhen, one of the largest cities we've ever been in. What we're going to do is walk through 10 floors and try to build a computer. We're not going for the cheapest build possible. We just buy on AliExpress and ship it for that. Instead, we are going for the most unique. So our goal today are to find a very unique case. We're going to try to find some open loop water cooling that we'll see if we have to settle. And look around for something computers, maybe X79, old school Xeon, something like that. So those are our goals. This place, there's very little English spoken here, at least at a level that you could negotiate, you could ask about computer parts in. So, this is great, we're going to do our best. We'll the don't one how, that's a lot in there. But I can say things like, we're building a computer, going to on ETIDM now, and we're looking for water cooling parts. Something very specific that I learned. We'll see if I learned the wrong phrases for 40 minutes on the plane. Let's go. Reloading. Huaqian Bay SEG. Before that, this video is brought to you by Gigabyte's X570 Master motherboard. X570 Master is what we use for all of our Ryzen 3000 CPUs. It has actual VRM. This strip of Huaqian Bay is a small part of a massive shopping mall.
The diffuser is no longer in your possession. 4 last stop standing.
Most of the factories we forged told us that finding workers in Shenzhen
Oh mein Gott.
We have been eliminated.
as these factories creep further and further out.
Oh mein Gott. Ich wusste nicht, dass der andere, der down war, der letzte ist mit mir. Das ist sad.
And Huaqian Bay in general has some of the most unique computer hardware we've seen. If you've ever browsed AliExpress just for fun, like to find quirky hardware, there's a good chance that the things you've found ship from here, or at least can be found here. Unfortunately, it's also difficult to film here. Security often wordlessly and sternly instructed us to stop filming multiple times, both back when we visited in March and in May, and you generally don't want to push that envelope too far as a foreigner in China. For this trip, we entered negotiations first to establish interest, and then ask for permission to film. This got the local vendors on our side most of the time, but security would still stop us.
Need to use your drone to locate a bomb.
We had to lay low, and some of this footage is a bit shaky as a result. Huaqian Bay itself has pristine streets, and it's dotted with skyscrapers that are
Drone has located a bomb.
RGB LEDs, which make Corsair blind. The streets are lined with smaller tea shops, local foods, and of course massive upscale malls. A nice hotel here costs about $140 a night, and that'll get you views like this one. are equivalent to what you find in a 400 Hilton in the US, and the proximity to staff that speak fairly fluent English, Mandarin, and sometimes other languages. For reference, the conversion rate helps
10
with this.
seconds
It's
to go.
typically close to 1 USD for about 7 RMB, or the Chinese
Insertion
yuan.
in 5
And
seconds.
This is a relatively new district in a city that has 40 years of manufacturing history.
You've located a
It
bomb.
acts as a hub
Make your
for
way to its
electronics.
location and
Several
defuse
of
it.
our factory floors were shot within 40 minutes of Huaqiang Bay, and these factories established the municipal infrastructure that allowed the newer service and commerce industries to pop up. A lot of this is wholesale driven, buying one-off pieces of hardware, kind of varying with the market vendors, but most are willing to listen if you make the first offer. The first question everyone asks is, how many do you want? And we're expecting probably dozens, if not hundreds, or potentially thousands for some of these smaller SMGs. We can also get things like custom PCBs, designed and printed within 12 hours at SEG E-Market, and have SMDs purchased for prototyping within minutes. We could then take it to a solder shop if you wanted, and get MOSFETs, conductors, controllers,
Changing magazine!
if it's not as good as directly going to the factory, you could buy reels of service mount components at
Der ist ganz oben bei Wensters. Ist so geworden.
This place does its best for rapid prototyping and production ramp-up, but also has a community built around sharing sales between each specialized seller. Of course, there's also a mix of fun, interesting
One friendly operator remaining.
我们想买这个单车可以拍摄吗？
Op 4 eliminated all friendly.
可以打开吗？ This computer case
Hello.
immediately caught our eye. It's on 4.4 out of 10 at SEG E-Market, and the brand alone
Aber
sells
ich
it.
glaube
This
an
is
uns.
the three-body case made by the prolific case brand that everyone knows, Coolman. It comes with
Auch nur noch
two
ein
200mm
Punkt.
fans, two 120mm fans, a couple of pentagrams, tempered glass, and, well, it's acrylic, but the sticker says it's glass, and also RGB LEDs. The bargaining process was a bit rough, to say the least.
我要去拿一下，在仓库库房。
English isn't very common here, and my Chinese isn't very good. If I think through it beforehand, we can come up with half of the conversation, but keeping up with the response requires someone very patient and slow speaking who uses very simple words. Most of the haggling in reality ends up looking like this. If neither of you speaks the other's language that well, this is where phones come out and translation apps do their work. But it's not uncommon to see people from all over the world communicating this way at ICG E-Market. The phone apps work well in most instances. Complex sentences will get head scratching from vendors, and the apps often will translate sentences that you build upon, but simple sentences are pretty easy. In this instance, after we both took turns fumbling through our phones, she told us that she'd have to run to the warehouse to grab a sellable boxed unit. Oh, okay.
Drone has located a bomb. Insertion in 10 seconds.
This, 在这里边.
5
Okay.
seconds. Proceed to bomb's location and defuse it.
走过去，
Actually,
走
fun.
回来。
Actually, fun 20 minutes.
走过去，走回来。
Okay, okay.
我以为还够。I know the drill. 我知道这仓库老地方。
Okay. We also wanted to know how many people bought a polite but tired-looking laugh. We're making this lady run downstairs and across the street, a 30-minute trek, to get us one case. It's not even an expensive one. Upon approach, we thought we'd be able to just buy the one there, but these small stands act more like showrooms, showing what goods are available in bulk at nearby warehouses than actual stores. Many of these shops also work with the same warehouses as each other. They represent different products. It's the smaller scale version that requires in any economy, except for localized mostly to one building. These shopkeepers spent 20 minutes with us, very patiently explaining how the process works, all by taking turns typing into translating apps, and so we didn't want to haggle too much on the price. They were polite and patient, and instead, we asked to see a few of the 120mm fans to make it a bit more worth their time. Of course, some things transcend language barriers and require no translation.
这个 RPG。
Okay.
这个 No RPG。
对对，明白。We threw in bunch of fans and did ask for a small discount, but not much, ultimately settling on about $500 for everything, or roughly 70 USD. That's not bad for a start. The case is probably one of the most review in our standardized case testing bench. The fans will be for a different computer, but our $66 case starts off adequately weird. This started us on a bit of a fan kit. We wanted to find some high RPM Delta fans, or equivalent while here, and so we ventured to this booth. It's a perfect example of how lower floors of SCG market work. We asked if we can buy the fans, and we're in turn handed a catalog of every fan you could ever want, available for purchase from thousands of units at a time. We also found these interesting because there were no headers on the fan. So we'd have to that's totally a challenge in the marketplace filled with literally thousands of small electronic components for every This guy really didn't want to sell us just one fan, partly because they were his display units, but also because he wanted to move volume. We tried asking several times if we could just buy one or two, and he always pointed us back to the catalog and the warehouse just to make them maybe $6 US
nice.
That are worth. It sort of makes sense. It's not worth his time. Finally, we decided to take a different approach to negotiating and just offer a good price. So just make an offer, I guess. What should I offer? $10? 15? 15 might be kind of high. Let's just try it. 我给你100块。OK， 100块可以吗
？OK， 因为这个是样品，你看这个是样品。
Just trying to say buy it from the factory. Will you sell these to me?
Okay.
两个对。
Okay.
因为我们都是出订单的，一个两个。
我的中文不好。OK。100块可以。
OK。
Mention.
We handed over about $15 US to make this easy. He didn't take issue with that offer, and we thought it might be on the high side, but we also just wanted to buy the fans and move on to other booths. For us, this was a good deal. A lot of people get hyper-focused on haggling. USD, not RMB, which is way beyond our budget. At that price, we really might as well just buy some modern hardware in the US, and so we gave up on these options. Instead, we returned to the shop where we bought a cheap X79 motherboard back in March. The shopkeepers remembered us, so getting a good deal wasn't too hard here. We got an Intel E5 2670 Xeon CPU from about 2012, which is an 8-core, 16-thread part at 3.3 GHz boost frequency, and then we coupled that with an interesting TG X79 B309 motherboard. Searching for this product string doesn't really surface much online. Taobao and Alibaba seem to indicate that this was an OEM motherboard at some point. It's not a good one, but that's why we liked it. It's just sort of strange. We noticed that some of these same model motherboards had differently colored SATA connectors, some a mix of red and black, some just black, some blue, and a mix of white and black with transparent 24-pin headers. This seemingly totally random selection of small parts on top of the same motherboard gave us confidence that we found the right product. The form factor isn't quite micro ATX and not quite mini ITX. It might be fair to call this mini DTX, which is a slightly longer form factor than mini ITX, not quite as long as micro ATX, and the same width as mini ITX. It's also incredibly uncommon. The biggest name that's doing a mini DTX board is probably the Asus Impact for the new Ryzen 3000 series CPUs. But beyond that one, it's unlikely you ever really hear about this for mainstream hardware. We also bought 2 sticks of ECC 8GB memory at 1600 megahertz CL11. This is DDR3 as a reminder. This allows us to populate both DIMM slots on the motherboard, but we're still obviously losing 2 of the channels on the 2670 CPU. It's a 4-channel capable CPU, but we have 2 DIMM slots on the board. So yeah, it's not a good build, but that's sort of the point. It should be fun, and again, a bit weird. The total cost of the motherboard, the former 8-core high-end Xeon
Ach so, du hast gesagt, wie alt bist du?
and the 16 gigabytes of RAM wasn't too bad. The X79 board was 300 RMB. The E5
Ja, das höre ich öfters.
or $56 for the most listings on AliExpress, and the memory was about 90 RMB for each stick. We then
Ich
asked
suche
a
noch
pretty
mehr
straightforward
Menschen.
question: can I have a discount? She sort of laughed, but knocked off 10%, resulting in a final price of 800 RMB or $132
Nice.
US. Looking over the pricing, the same Samsung memory would have cost us $35 on AliExpress for 16 gigabytes. The cheapest 2670 Xeon on AliExpress would have cost us $58, and the motherboard would cost roughly $51 to $60 per piece if we bought 100 of them.
Ja, aber das ist lustig, die gehen einfach in China nach und versuchen das daraus in die Computer zu sagen, so mit jeden Teilen müssen immer so mit denen negotiaten und so verhandeln. Das ist lustig.
Aber trotzdem fällt das einfach durchgefallen.
Lassen wir es ab. Das ist schon oder was? Ja, nee, das wird anders. Das ist ja nicht, wie das alles genau funktioniert. Das ist dann ja einfacher.
Ja. Doch.
Bisschen abgefragt über Dortmund, aber egal.
Ich habe noch kein Ladekabel gefunden. Weil ich nicht gesucht habe.
Guckst du Fußball?
Oh nein, oh mein Gott, was machen wir auch noch?
Was machst du? Also. Leute, ich finde keine. Das ist nicht gut. Nein! Bitte nicht. Lass einfach eine Runde zu gut spielen. Ja, warte, ich mach die Party öffentlich.
The exact board
Nice.
but even as both prices similar to what we paid. Were we to order these parts online, it would cost us $144 or so we're pretty on mark for the pricing. That said, again, we didn't really haggle that hard as we were already causing a bit of a scene, and we also weren't focused on price. We were focused on getting some interesting parts. Time to find a CPU cooler for our build, but we need to look for guards before moving along.
Do you want to scout ahead near the escalator?
Yeah. With the coast clear, we found the cooling shop next. We wanted to try and buy some of the famous cheap open loop water cooling parts. All of these shops have the same stuff we have in the US, like your average Cooler Master closed loop liquid coolers, standard power coolers, a lot of Cooler Master stuff, but we wanted something more unique. It was a little hard to communicate that we wanted open loop cooling, but eventually we figured it out.
像买水碗散热器的那个浆，你明白我吗？
这个散热器，
对，
那个120，
那个
Hallo.
TDD，这个 CPU，分离的，分离的，
对，
水封头，
对，分离的， No. Okay.
We then fumbled through Google Translate to ask him if anyone in the building had open-loop cooling at all, but he said no. We even checked Linus's old video, Strange Parts, where the pair struggled to find more than a single open-loop pit in the whole mall. Ultimately, we decided on a tricked-out 120mm air cooler with a dragon painted on top of it, can't go wrong there, because 15-year-old me would have loved having this cooler for her system built. We paid about $15 for this too, which is well below the price of your average cooler on Newegg. But whether it's any good will be a different story. We didn't film the thermal paste shop, or not much of it, but our next stop was to find some thermal compound for our new computer. As stated earlier, it's impossible to buy some stuff in a single unit SKU, and thermal paste is definitely one of those things. We ventured to a darker corner of an empty upstairs floor to find our tin dealer. Originally, we asked for a single tube, but the shopkeeper laughed and shook her head, and so we then asked, well, how much is it for this bag of syringes? Which definitely doesn't sound sketchy. But she told us it was $5.
Ja, was hast du gesagt? Sorry.
We asked if she had a better model available.
Nee, der eine ist einfach wieder rausgegangen. Deshalb sind wir nicht 5, leider. Ja, und einer ist in der Runde gerade, glaube ich. Ja.
We then bought some of the HY610 gold model compound. HY610 is rated at 3.05 watts per meter Kelvin, so still not great, but better if you can trust the numbers. And we were able to buy 5 30-gram tubes, plus a bunch of smaller tubes, for about $10 US. These are priced at $2.22 on AliExpress for 30 grams, for reference, so we walked away slightly better off with our extra bag of smaller syringes. An SSD was next on our list. We had seen these with Ramsta drives everywhere, really wanted one, but only because of the red fist on the marketing materials and the name that both screamed quality. After a few vendors told us not to film and another refused to sell us this model, we finally found someone willing to part with his beloved Ramsta SSD at 240 gigabytes and accompanied with a genuine Ramsta foil sticker, so we knew it's not counterfeit. We knew we were finally in for a good SSD. The drive cost us under 20 US.
Ja, moin.
We did actually end up making him run to the warehouse and spend 30 minutes finding one of these drives that we so desperately wanted, and we only wanted one of them. To be clear, this is probably total garbage as an SSD, but it looks different. We found one of these drives sold in the US for $56, which is quite some markup, but it was the only site we could find selling. Ours also might be broken. We haven't checked yet. The last stop was the GPU. Back in March, just a few days before the AMD RX 560 XT came out in China only, we desperately asked every vendor if we could buy one ahead of launch. No one had it, so we turned this trip to try again. The GPU shop attendants were some of the nicest people we worked with during this trip. One of them spoke decent enough English that we weren't too slowed down by translate applications, and we were able to combine bits and pieces of Mandarin and English to communicate. They even asked us what we do, and when we showed them the YouTube channel, they gave approving nods. The attendants even patiently taught us how to say some of the company names in Chinese, which proved useful later in the trip. These guys were pretty awesome. We bought the Sapphire RX 560 XT dual fan card for cheap here, about $120 US, but this was back in May, so it was more expensive than it is now. And we hung out for a bit to ask some questions. We'll hear how she...
Ich meine Türkisch. Ich spreche nicht perfekt, aber ich kann sprechen. Ich komme aus Italien.
The MSI Lighting 2080 Ti was almost off the island, so we first established that we had absolutely no interest in buying it, and we were furious, and then asked how much it cost. In Shenzhen, this card was selling for about $600 more than it was in the US at the time, at over $2,000 US. So we passed on buying this one. The only part that leaves out then is the power supply, which we'll source locally because it was too heavy to carry back. We also got this. It's a gift for our primary video editor. It's a Nintendo Switch cooling fan. He really likes it. You should see it. It's like crying. He's so happy about it. So we got the Nintendo Switch cooling accessory, and in the same place, this is unrelated to the computer, we picked up a game station, which of course many of you know is Sony's greatest console that they've ever made. So the game station is probably something Pat's will look at later. We're not quite sure what to do with it. I think it has 600 consoles, just like classic games on it. See if there's a ROMs or something. It weighs about the same as a Raspberry Pi, but it's maybe 30 times larger. So that's all the stuff we bought. The computer hardware items we'll be looking at separately in review. So the case it's already been benchmarked, has went through that. We had to slightly custom modify it to fit our video card, but it has been benchmarked. So we'll have a case review up. We've got a review of this video card probably going up after some of the partner models for the 700 series goes up, and then for the rest of this, the biggest thing we'll be doing sitting up building the computer. So with all the parts, we can pull a power supply from somewhere, and once we assemble it, we'll see if it works. See if any of the or just let it home. But most of it was tested and bought it. So check back for the stream. Not sure when that'll be. We'll announce it on Twitter or in a news video or something. And thanks for watching. Let us know what you thought of this content below. Subscribe for more or go to store.gamersdigest.net. Pick up a limited edition shirt like this foil shirt that I'm wearing or one of our toolkits.
Jens.
Ja, es lebt.
Auf geht er, der Peter.
Es lebt, Bruder.
Es lädt, hör auf den Eichelkopf zu streicheln, komm.
Vielleicht hörst du nicht.
Maschallah. Signore Tonschuh ganz stark. Ja, jetzt hitzt sich den Jens, ja, und jetzt ist die Truller ihre... Hallo.
Und dann auch zum Arbeiten da. Probearbeiten.
Ja.
Jackie, starte mal.
Ja, sorry, ich war abgelenkt. Sorry, wenn ihr gewartet habt. Hallo? Ich würde noch einmal fragen.
Paul war nicht mehr sonst was. Das weiß ich nicht.
Ich weiß keine Kaufbordmesse. Nein, ich weiß. Ich wollte fragen, ob du die andere hättest, dass du sie wegschmeißt. Warte, da kriegt er noch. Ich weiß was.
Dann ist schon
Was?
Ich hab es halt verdreht.
Ja, oder? Oh mein Gott.
Neu starten.
Ich auch. Ich glaube, wir müssen neu starten. Ich bin rausgeflogen. Ich starte jetzt das Spiel neu.